You're listening to Experience Imagination, a themed entertainment design podcast presented by Falcon's Creative Group. Every episode, we discuss a new topic with a panel of creative professionals. Hi, I'm Cecil McPurry, President and Chief Creative Officer of Falcons.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Experience Imagination. We have a very, very special episode today. Recently, February 1st, 2020, Falcons was celebrating its 20th anniversary. In addition to a big fun party that we had for the whole office.
Off the charts?
Yes, absolutely, off the charts. Cecil, you published a blog article reflecting on kind of the journey and also the culture of the company that brought us here. And we wanted to do a special podcast discussion to kind of accompany that blog post and dive a little deeper into that story.
Memory lane.
Yep.
Yeah. It was nice to kind of reflect back. It was Yvette and Audrey that kind of kicked it off with promoting kind of an open dialogue, a conversation. And even from the inception of our name, we went back that far.
Yeah, right to the why of and how of Falcon's Treehouse.
Yeah, so that was fun. It was really fun to go back, and you don't really realize sometimes until you're reflective on how much of a journey you've gone through.
Yeah,
until you look back.
Well, as a good marker to kind of complement that journey, we have some very, very special guests that will be joining us. Each kind of touch upon different milestones and markers along the Falcons journey, from some of our earliest projects to one of the defining projects that happened a little bit more recently, and even a client that is coming down on the horizon and speaks to what's in the future for Falcons. But before we get to our special guests, we are very delighted to be joined by some very familiar faces around the Falcon studio to talk in and around those special guest conversations. If I could get you guys to introduce yourselves to the podcast real quick, starting with Yvette.
Hi, my name's Yvette Whitaker, and I'm the Executive VP of Operations, employee number one.
Number one, that's right, yeah.
And
right.
A 20-year employee of the company.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
David?
Hello, I'm David Schaefer, Vice President at Falcons Creative Group, and going on, almost 14 years since I started my internship with Falcons.
Wow.
Yeah, he still gets carded, so.
Yeah. Of course, I was 12 when I started.
She gets carded too.
So we had kind of been going a little back and forth on this episode in terms of what exactly we wanted to cover, because there's obviously no shortage of topics that could be covered.
20 years topics.
20 years, projects around the globe, projects from design, media, new licensing products, new branches, new branding, new ways to think about what is happening and changing in the industry and around the world. I guess maybe a place to start would be, is there anything throughout that 20-year journey, throughout your time here at Falcons, that has remained the same and has taken you by surprise for remaining the same?
Yeah, I'm going to have Yvette and David kind of answer that.
To me, it's very black and white, and that's culture. To me personally, in this journey that I've been on in 20 years, I've seen the company evolve, I've seen people around me evolve, but the constant is, what we come into this office to achieve every day, and that's to do good work, to be as professional, as creative, and as passionate as possible, and everybody here kind of has that, so we're lucky in that respect.
Yeah, I think there's so many people in this world that do their jobs 9 to 5 begrudgingly and just kind of trod through it because, hey, that's life and you got to do it. But, I think one thing that surprised me at Falcons and starting my career here really is it doesn't have to be like that. There are places in the world, Falcons of course being one of them, where you can love what you do, you can love coming to work every day. And sure, there are tough times and challenges and difficult
crunch weeks and
of course. But at the end of the day, I think it's that feeling that, hey, I really love what we do here, and I love the people that you work with, and being able to rely on them and have them kind of pull you up when you're down, or rely on them when you need help, and do the same for them. That's something that I think has always been important to Cecil, and in who he picks and chooses to join the company to make sure that maintains high on the list of important characteristics, that type of culture. And even though I've spent the vast majority of my career here, I feel like I do have at least some wisdom now that I can say, man, that really is something special that we have going on here that not too many people can say.
And for me, it's the other way around. I did have the wisdom and held several positions before this one. And yeah, for sure, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, what we have here is special. And for those people who haven't had an opportunity to experience life outside of Falcons, it's quite different.
Yeah.
From Falcons Academies to onboarding to this recent unsolicited love
The love police.
love police.
Yeah, the Love Police that we had. Valentine's Day was a few days ago. Our own native vigilante group of
Yes.
Love Police had plastered one heart for every single employee around the studio with a very, very thoughtful and considerate personal statement about why they love working with that person. That was great. That was a really great surprise for everybody.
So I was on my staycation, and I get a picture of the hearts, Marty and I, and here we are crying in the corner, trying not to wake up our little ones, but being very touched.
My heart was on the podcast sign for
How
our
apropos.
podcast room.
Of course it was.
Perfect. I mean, that's culture.
Yeah, that's culture.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
perfect example.
So culture is a big part of our identity. We would not be who we are today without it. But we would also not be who we are today without the friends and collaborators we have made along the way. So we'll start with an interview with one of Falcon's very first clients, Christina Hull, with whom Falcons collaborated on a variety of projects, including AT&T Global Neighborhood at Epcot and Webopolis at Disneyland. Let's get into our conversation with Christina now. Hey, Christina.
Hi, Christina.
Hi.
Thank you so much. I think we really wanted to start by just hearing a little bit more from you about your journey and how you got to where you are, how you got started in this industry.
So I started out my career, I graduated Rutgers University and landed a job at AT&T. I ended up in the marketing organization and made my way over to a newly formed group called Sponsorships and Promotions. We had invested heavily in media around partners like the NBA and the Olympics. So I started there and I managed to do very well at AT&T. I stayed 11 years. I started in sports, but then was able to move into entertainment and take on big strategic partnerships like Walt Disney. So it gave me a lot of exposure externally, but also internally to senior management teams.
Falcon's journey and your journey have intertwined a lot. Can you talk a little bit about how you and Cecil first crossed paths?
Sure. So I, like I said, at AT&T was the lead on managing the Walt Disney relationship. And he was at another agency who had the business of helping us with our brand and our brand presence as we were renovating our space at Epcot in the
Intervention space, yeah.
Yes, and then Spaceship Earth, right? And we
Right.
were entering the millennium, remember? And yet the ride, the journey through communications ended with like a corded phone. And
Yeah.
it was like,
That's funny.
For us at AT&T and the senior leaders, we felt that Cecil was so much of the visionary in the work that was coming through, and so impressed with just how he could grasp our brand story and then apply it into an engaging and entertaining experience for consumers of all ages. Like, that was what blew us away. And I was young, so I just was pushing because I had just such a belief that we needed to stick with him to build this attraction for the millennium. And that was the beginning, I believe. Right?
You were successful at it.
We've talked a lot about how the vision can always be strong, and sometimes even, the resources that you have at your disposal or the IP that you're working with or the partnership is very strong, but there are always so many hurdles and obstacles and logistics that have to be worked through. Was there ever a moment where when things were clicking and things were coming together that it actually took you by surprise or you learned something that you hadn't expected?
While I was able to have this complete confidence that Cecil and the team had the build and were going to carry out the vision, there was just so much on the brand side that needed to get done in order for that to happen.
Right.
So it was a huge learning for me. It forced me in front of leaders and meetings that I had never anticipated being in front of.
Right, outside your comfort zone, but you were able to step
Totally.
up and play that. I remember a lot of these meetings, the hierarchy that were involved, it was unbelievable. I mean, all the way up to Marty
Crazy.
Sklar and, from the Walt Disney Imagineering
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, Marty Sklar, I remember. I mean, it was really, for you guys as well, like your proof point to Disney and
Yeah.
pulling off something so cool. I mean, that tree is still something that's like magnificent to me. The marbles, like the clear
Unbelievable.
floor.
The marbles.
I remember coming up with that concept of let's make the ocean of this planet be marbles, these vibrant cobalt blue marbles. It was 3 a.m. and we're trying to think about what kind of aggregate we wanted to put underneath the glass floor. And I said, you know what? These vases that people put flowers in, they're beautiful, and it's representational of ocean and water. And I said, let's do marbles. So I did the math, and I said, we have to hide all these different anchors and junction boxes. So we did the math, and we needed 3 million marbles.
3 million.
Oh, but
But
the
like
next
tomorrow.
day.
Yeah, the next day, right?
No, we literally had 4 days before we needed to close the glass.
How do you do that? How do you get 3,000?
Well, Daryl Benton,
3 million.
our project manager, immediately thought, we can't. At 5 a.m, we're already punch drunk from programming all night. And so at 7 a.m, he said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and try to get you 3 million marbles. And so he called, it was a small town in North Carolina that made marbles.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. And called him up
barrels of them.
the owner was an older gentleman that was actually in a bar
At the time.
said that you got to be joking. Hung up on him like 3 times, saying
Really?
we really need 3 million marbles. And so they said, if that's true, we need 50% up front, and we're going to get the whole town to come help us get this done.
That's amazing.
Yep.
I had no idea.
So,
That's how it happened.
That's how it happened.
oh, and we got a lot of attaboys because when it started pouring in and we had all the lights, it just looked so gorgeous.
Yeah.
Sparkled.
Incredible. I had forgotten about
That
that,
was
Christina.
incredible. Yeah, and then we at AT&T with that attraction got like 80% of the gate would go through that first ride. And then it allowed us then to immediately do innovations out on the West Coast.
Yeah, and Disneyland.
Where to me it was the first ever 4D experience that I had been in, where we did that theater
It was
of
unbelievable.
conversion.
Bandwidths.
Webopolis.
Webopolis. It was introducing the web to the world.
I know, and remember
Right.
you created the character?
Animated ad character and Webopolis and the bandwidths.
The bandwidths.
So it was like the Jetsons.
Come meet the bandwidths. The future is calling you. Come meet the bandwidths. Betty, Billy, Judy, and good on you.
Yeah, it was so good. It was so clever. The seats moved, the smell of chestnuts.
Yeah, we had scent.
Yeah,
That
it was
a
incredible.
Very effective.
But the coolest thing for me, like it's funny still being in the industry, still building things. And when I have agencies, they're like, and it's this 4D experience. I'm like, please. Like we did 4D and like we put 4D in a mobile truck and toured it around the country for Hard Rock.
That's
Do you
right.
remember
That's
the
right.
smell of burnt rubber?
Yes.
Oh my God.
That was so good.
I love it. Congratulations to you guys. Well deserved, well earned.
Thank you so much, Christina. We really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Have a
All right,
good
have
one.
a great day.
Up next, we will be looking back on a project from our more recent past and talking a little bit about Falcon's journey in more recent years up to the present. Zone 5 at Motion Gate Dubai is where we had the distinct pleasure and honor of being able to bring the world of the Hunger Games to life. We will be talking to our friend and client from that project, Matt Pretty. Hey, Matt.
How is everybody?
Good.
We wanted to start actually by seeing you have such a legendary background in the industry. Could you just tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are?
Well, it was interesting. You know Rick Rothschild, correct, Cecil?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He and I went to UCLA together. After we graduated, our first job was in Spokane, Washington, taking the Expo 74 U.S. Pavilion facility and converting that into, in effect, an attraction. So that was kind of our first theme park attraction that we did in 1976. And
Wow.
we got done with that. That was hugely successful. And we had to invent some stuff along the way, just like you guys have, about how to prefab stuff and materials and things of that nature. But we went back to Los Angeles when it was done. I went to UCLA as an instructor in rigging, lighting, audio, and stenography. So one day I got a phone call from Rick, and we were about to do Epcot Center. Well, Disney was about to do Epcot Center, and their model in the past for Disneyland and Walt Disney World, the Magic Kingdoms, was all the scenery elements were done by the various studio scene shops in Hollywood.
Right.
There happened to have been somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 million square feet of theme park scenery required for Epcot Center, and the industry couldn't handle it. They said, well, what do we do? So Rick said, just call Matt. So they called me, and I went out and located the Tahunga building. So we started that whole thing, and we built 3 million square feet of scenery in 18 months.
Oh, my goodness.
That's amazing. Moving to DPR, the story of Motion Gate, and how did you and Falcons cross paths as Motion Gate was coming to be?
I think we crossed paths when you guys were doing, Cecil, Bana Hill in Da Nang
That's
Yeah,
right.
Vietnam.
with Phil Hawking, right?
Right. Yep.
And,
Phil, we had hired
right.
Phil to come on board to kind of represent us locally in Vietnam.
Yeah, well, and that's where I ran into you guys up on the hill. I was with KHS&S, visiting, looking at their phase 1 stuff.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help but notice the French Village and how awesome, the work that you guys were producing, from a themed plaster and color and all that. And then I think we finally met each other, Cecil, at one of the IAPA Asias, whether it be in Singapore, Hong Kong, Shanghai, I don't know where it was. But
That's right.
it was somewhere over there, I think, is where we finally managed to hook up.
Yeah, I think we've had like multiple layers of crossing paths, I think. Multiple
Some of those
layers.
projects were successful and some of them weren't, but never, on the negative side had anything to do with you guys, that's for sure. But yeah, it's kind of all over the world. And, when it came time to do Zone 5 or Landscape at DPR, the decision to pull the trigger on that happened kind of late because it was always sort of, is it phase 1.5? Is it phase 2? What? And so eventually, when it was just a little bit too late to make the decision, they made the decision.
Yeah.
At the time, I was in charge of everything except the construction. So I said, well, I need the A-team on this. I can't screw around, so I'm going to call you guys. And that's literally the decision that I made right then and there. That's it. Falcon's done. Because we had some not difficult but very demanding IP.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, I just finished with Katzenberg and all those guys, rummaging through DreamWorks, which turned out to be awesome.
Yes. Beautiful.
Fantastic.
And so, I was at the top of my managing creative and getting IP squared away at the time. And so I just kind of moved right into that. And as you know, one of the big successes of that project in our collaboration was Sarah Gibbon.
Oh, yes.
When I interviewed her in 2014, she was over in Dubai writing children's books. And she came into my office with her clam diggers and her Crocs on, and we sat down, and after about 5 minutes, I said, well, you're nothing but an old hippie.
She's a hippie.
She said, how'd you know? I said, well, it's pretty obvious. But, and I said, you're hired. And I put her on Legoland, and then, from there, I moved her over when I moved over to DPR, I moved her with me, and, we had put her in charge of creative in general, and she did a fabulous job.
Yeah, that was a wonderful process for us. I mean, it's an understatement to say we appreciate getting that call of saying, are you guys ready?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember hopping on a plane the next day
Yeah.
to fly there and
Put closure.
put closure to the contract. It was one of the smoothest, contract.
It really
process.
was, and I think in some cases when You don't have a lot of time. There's not a lot of time to, question your own decisions, and so you just go for it. And you always can only rely on your experience. And I was once told by somebody, or I read it somewhere, that says, good judgment comes from experience, but experience comes from bad judgment.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it's true when you think about it. So if you draw on all that kind of stuff, and you pull together what you did that worked and what you did that didn't work, it's pretty clear how you move forward when you don't have a lot of time to question yourself.
We internalized it immediately, knowing how aggressive the schedule was to try to catch up. And so we hit the ground running.
Yeah.
And it was literally, we all had a game plan and ran in different directions. But knowing the milestones that needed to be met, we were really proud of how it turned out.
When I look back on that whole thing, it was in comparison to the rest of MotionGate, it was painless,
Right.
And I think at the time, everybody, like I said earlier, had hit their stride and they were just going. You guys just were the logical extension of that. What you did from a media standpoint was perfect. The whole Lionsgate area development that you did, all the statues and all that, and certainly the facades, it just looked just like it.
Yeah, we were really proud of looking at some of the scenic work that the feature film team did, and what we were able to create that was, obviously outdoors in the very, very challenging sun of Dubai. And we're able to get the integral colors into the facades of District 12.
Is there a key takeaway or a favorite lesson that you hold from that project, from that journey?
What this did for me is it just quadrupled my level of involvement at minute levels of detail, using my friends and family from the industry that I know that do stuff well as professionals and as people who have pride in their final product. It's people like yourself that go the extra mile, even though it's not written in a contract somewhere.
Right.
That's nothing but pure relationship stuff. The team you had was awesome. From the top on down, clearly. And that experience is why we're working together now.
Right. And we're very excited at some point in the future to be able to talk about
it. Yeah.
this amazing experience.
I love you guys.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Love you, man.
Talk to you later.
Finally, we want to take some time to talk about the future, both of our studio, but also about the industry as a whole. For a conversation like that, we'd like to welcome our friend and current client, Kermit Weeks. Kermit, we wanted to first ask, how did you and Cecil cross paths?
Oh, wow. Well, I've been on my journey for quite some time, and of course, started Act 1, Act 2, and basically closed the doors to Act 2 of Fantasy of Flight in 2014, and I had bumped into Bob Ward, who was like kind of the original, one of the lead design guys at the original Universal Studios parks, and we had bumped into each other at a themed entertainment SATE conference, and it was just kind of synchronistic destiny, and eventually, as we kind of got working together a little bit, Bob recommended Falcons. And there was another group that we had talked about too initially, and we met with them, but Falcons was a match made in heaven. There's no question that we were not supposed to get together to move forward with what we're doing. And it's been, there was a couple little bumps there, I think, early on that, we were trying to figure out how we were working with each other, because I don't think I'm your normal client. And
That's an understatement.
and, but things are going pretty good now, and the coolest thing for me is everybody's really excited about where we're headed, because I'm fascinated by the industry as it is, but in and of itself, as it stands now, has no purpose for me. It's a fun business to be in, but I see if it's tweaked slightly with what I hope to deliver, I think it has just tons of potential, because it has meaning and purpose, and I think that's potentially where we're going to take this.
Absolutely.
Prior to you guys meeting, I think I had spoke about storytelling with architecture. And I just kind of remember sitting back down in the audience and actually seeing this kind of eye contact scenario that happened when Bob Ward stood up and Kermit stood up in the audience and kind of looked at each other across the room. It was like this romantic scene where you guys kind of navigated towards each other.
Yeah,
but
everything went in slow motion.
Slow mo-
The seas parted, the lights came down from the heavens.
But it was like that. I know Bob describes it like that there was just kind of a pulling energy between you guys in the audience.
I'd love to chat a little bit more about how our journeys have intersected at various points. You were talking about what that process was like, especially when you were first looking for design firms and working with Bob. I feel like any project, any collaboration is kind of like trying to find a new language together, but that is especially the case with a vision as unique and ambitious as Fantasy of Flight, Act 3, where it's not just like trying to invent a language together, you're almost trying to invent an entire new universe, a new way of thinking, and so I'd be very curious to know what that process was like, especially early on.
The existing industry, as Walt created it, and Universal Studios jumped on the bandwagon, and and other organizations, it's designed more for the masses, the families, and blah blah blah. And basically, what I want to do is I want to create something that's more for the individual. Okay, and where this becomes important is the existing industry. From my perspective, Walt's segue was we had just come out of World War II in Korea, okay? We didn't have to deal with the aftermath cleanup of Asia and Europe. We came back home with our troops. We were looking for, to escape from that, okay? Yeah. And it was Leave It to Beaver time. We were looking to escape from reality. So to me, that was Walt's segue. What I want to create is something that's for the individual, and it's more about engaging reality. So we're not here to tell anybody anything. What we do is we take these common elements of the human experience and allow people, while they're emotionally engaged in the experience with all this great theming and immersive environments and ride technology and bumps and noises and sounds and everything, while they're emotionally engaged in the experience, they cannot not help but reflect on where they've come from, where they currently are, and where they are going to go, or where they dream to go, or where they wish to go or feel drawn to go. And so I think the existing industry, basically, when you get off of a ride, basically, I have no intention of delivering rides. I have every intention of delivering experiences. Instead of getting off and going, oh my God, that's really cool, let's get back in line, or where's the next one, like eating popcorn, I would rather have my future client say, I want to go sit on a bench somewhere and think about this, and reflect on what they just experienced and how it applies to their own life. And so instead of using entertainment as an end to make change, and I'm rubbing my fingers together for the audio listeners, what I want to do is I want to create a product where we use entertainment not as an end product, but as a means to an end to your own self-discovery and self-transformation. Because when you self-discover something for yourself, you own that experience. It's yours. It's got sticky value, and it's memorable. And just imagine going into a theme park of the future where nobody tells you anything. You literally change yourself inside. You leave a different person, and nobody knows what went on. And we can deliver that, I think we're onto something.
No doubt.
I think that's
David, go ahead.
Just awesome to kind of hear that, because I think you can draw so many analogies to kind of our celebration of our 20th anniversary here at Falcons. Is, throughout these conversations in this podcast, I think we've tried to communicate and explain what is the secret sauce, what makes Falcons so special, why we've been successful, we all love working here and all those things. But I think Kermit said it so well, is it's a journey of self-discovery. And so for those of us that have been here so many years, it's like it's everything combined. It's the highs and the lows, and that's what makes it as amazing as it has been. So I think, man, what a perfect kind of client and project to talk about for the future, because it just kind of reinforces the parallel of Falcon's journey. Yeah, I mean, it's just perfect.
I have to interject here. Everyone here that I've worked for has been very excited about the project. Everyone's just like, there's just such an energy and an excitement, and everybody, they get it, and it
resonates.
Yeah, they do. And I've explained to people, our job here as artistic creators of whatever we're going to do to create this thing, our mission statement at Fantasy Flight is to light that spark within. It's nothing more than a metaphor. This reality that we experience in my world is created with light, okay? So what light that spark within is, if what we truly are is infinite potential. And I want people to discover that from themselves. We all have so much potential within us, but the only way we can experience ourselves as infinite potential is through limitation. And we always have this ability to go beyond what we perceive ourselves to be. And that, in essence, is what the Fantasy of Flight concept is. It's got nothing to do with airplanes. It's all about flight of the human spirit.
Thank you, Kermit, so much. This has been an amazing
Thank you.
conversation.
We really appreciate it.
We're really excited about our 20 year, and we're excited about our future. And so I'm excited about helping you.
Oh, my God.
Creating the next industry.
And
Yeah.
you're a big part of our future. So.
Oh, well, good. Well, I'm looking forward to the next 20 years, and I hope you guys are all going to be with me. So cool.
Awesome.
Look forward to it.
That about wraps us up for our 20th anniversary special. I'd like to thank our panelists, Cecil, Yvette, and David, for celebrating with us in the podcast studio today. I'd also like to thank our friends, Christina Hall, Matt Priddy, and Kermit Weeks. This episode and so much more would not be possible without them, so thank you. Don't go anywhere just yet, because we have a special treat that we would like to end this episode with. But real quick before we get to that, just want to remind you that you can send us an email if you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes at podcast@falconscreativegroup.com. Again, that's podcast@falconscreativegroup.com. So, to close us out on this very special episode, we wanted to share a snippet that was taken from our 20th anniversary party during a speech made by another Falcon leader who has been with the company with Cecil from the very beginning, Marty Magpuri, CFO of Falcons.
Cecil had a vision back then. He did not want this to be the Cecil Magpuri design firm. He was adamant. He said, this has got to be bigger than me. This company has to succeed with or without me. It has to be based on a team that has a culture of caring, passion for excellence, and just the willingness and desire to make entertaining experiences around the world. I don't come to the office every day, but I can tell you, I know you well. I see you through my husband's eyes when he comes home at night from work. He beams with pride when he talks about each and every one of you, your talents and your accomplishments, the caring things you do for each other and for the people that we work with. This is a celebration of 20 years that has made this dream team right here. So I just want to thank you on behalf of Cecil and myself from the bottom of our hearts for choosing to become Falcons.
This has been Experience Imagination. For more information about this episode's discussion, be sure to visit our blog at falconscreativegroup.com. And don't forget to follow Falcons Creative Group on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram.